My guest today is Pascal Yammine, the CEO of Zilliant. Before he joined Zilliant 2 years ago, Pascal was the GM and Senior Vice President of Salesforce Revenue Cloud. He lives with his family in Chicago, and I'm very excited to have him back on the CPQ podcast. Welcome back, Pascal.
Thank you, Frank. It's great to be here. Appreciate you inviting me.
Very happy to have you back. And I was wondering, let's start with how were the last 2 years for you at Zilliant?
Well, I've learned a lot. And you say 2 years, it's actually, for the date of us recording this call, it's literally 2 years tomorrow. So it's actually exactly 2 years. It's been a great opportunity. Zilliant is a great foundation as a company, and a great organization, great team to work with. We're going through a lot of change, and change is always hard. You always have to decide, are we going through the right changes, and how do you go about the changes, and how do you do it most effectively while maintaining a strong customer experience? And that's the hard part for us. So I definitely learned a lot. It's very humbling, and I'm really excited about where we're going.
Excellent. And I have some for you concerning these changes a little bit later, but let's start with now you also have to deal with private equity partners, right? So I was
Yes.
wondering, how is that for you? How has that changed from Salesforce to now?
Well, I think number one is Zilliant was acquired by a private equity firm, Madison Dearborn Partners, out of Chicago in December of 21, and they're the ones who, through executive recruiters, brought me into Zilliant. It's important. I mean, they've been great. I mean, the Madison Dearborn Partners as a private equity firm has been very supportive. Very engaging with us in terms of like providing their feedback in a positive and a productive way. They've been very proactive. Like we've assembled a great board of directors, beyond just the private equity firm, independent board members, members like Dan Deldegan, who has a long track record in the SaaS B2B space. And so I think that I felt them as a part of the team. Obviously private equity has a lot of reputations. And so to me, the most important part is, are we aligned on what we're trying to accomplish as a company? And making sure that we're aligned with their investment thesis, and we are. I mean, and that's just as long as we're aligned and we're clear, and this is a growth investment. There's a massive opportunity. They see that, I see that, and we're operating in that way. And with that context in place, it's always good to just kind of keep that context in conversation. I think so far very positive.
Excellent. And I think you also spent quite some time in Austin, right? So I mean, Zilliant's headquarters obviously in Austin. So how much time do you spend there, and how is that for you?
Not too much. I'm in Chicago. I travel quite a bit, to see customers, to visit other members of the team. Our headquarters is in Austin, Texas. We have a physical office there, and not very dissimilar to other companies. There's certainly not a lot of people who go back to the office. We do still have the overwhelming majority of our employees, full-time employees, are in the Austin area. But when you look at what they do from an engineers, for example, we have a lot of offshore resources, and so the importance of going into the office on a day-to-day basis isn't as high. That gave us also the opportunity to hire a leadership team, and not be only focused on Austin. So Kylie, who is runs our product and marketing organization in San Francisco. Adi is our CTO. He's in North Carolina. So our leadership team is pretty spread out, which is good, because so are our customers and so are our other employees. I still go to Austin. It is an office, and it's a great office. We go there maybe once a quarter. But we do make it a point, and I think it's really important for any company who has a primarily remote organization, is to invest in-person events, whether they be at the office or somewhere else, doesn't matter. That connection is important. And so I do make sure to have that connection, and I travel for that connection, but not always in Austin.
Got it. Now let's talk about the customers. So you've talked to many customers, I guess, or to every customer that Zilliant has, and probably many prospects too, right? So was there anything that surprised you when you talked to these customers?
Nothing significant. I think number one, customers were not very unlike other businesses. Once they're live and they're getting value, it's there's a commitment there, because what we do has a direct impact on their revenue, the bottom line and the top line. It's a great conversation. I think the one thing that I don't think I would call a surprise as much as I see as a differentiator that I experience is, we're not working at a junior level. We're working at the CFO and the C-suite, because ultimately that's where they're focused on, top line and bottom line. And our ability to impact that is clear. And I've loved that. I mean, I've experienced that in the conversations, on the other side of that conversation, if we don't get a customer live, that's a problem. And so for us, getting customers live and getting them live as fast as possible is a priority. And as long as we do that, the customers are delighted, and we're delighted.
There you go. So that's good. So then, but we talked a little bit about change at the beginning, right? So I was wondering, up to this point, what do you think? What was the most controversial decision that you had to make?
Well, Zilliant has a long, life, and the Zilliant's been around for 24 years. And Zilliant started in predominantly in a services organization, as a services company, where they were, using their pricing expertise to provide pricing expertise to customers. And it was a pricing expertise that was a product. Over the course of time, not dissimilar to other companies, similar companies, they built software, they moved that software to the cloud in the early 2012. But still, they were really proud of, and they should have been proud of the price optimization, the pricing science, and that perspective they brought to customers every single time. Obviously, for me joining Zilliant, and part of the investment thesis that I have is that pricing is a space that is not prioritized enough, across enterprises. There's a big gap across enterprises. In order for that to scale, we needed to looking at partners. And so, a company for 22 years, every Zilliant project was run by Zilliant Services, and they've done a great job, but that's not going to scale. We can't scale to the level I know we can scale to if we rely only on Zilliant Services. So I think the number one controversial topic is, partner model, is leveraging partners. And we've built partnerships with a lot of the large SIs like Accenture and Cognizant, as well as some regional SIs. A year ago we had none. So we're making good progress, but it's, in a company that was built on services, it is a shift in mindset that certainly I would say, I don't think it was controversial in the sense that it was always part of the plan, but it certainly was controversial in Zilliant.
Got it. And you look at the key strategic priorities that you have for Zilliant for the next 2, 3, 4 years that you can share publicly, obviously. What would that be?
We talked about one. Number one is we want to scale. In order to scale, we need to expand our ability to scale through partners. Doesn't mean only partners. We will always have a services organization. We have a great team, but that is a strategic priority that is not only a benefit to us, but it's our benefit to customers. I mean, the most common feedback I've heard from CEOs is, "Can you go faster?" They get live, they see the impact, and then they want to go faster. And partners are going to be the best way for us to do that.
But let me ask one question here. So, especially since you mentioned the big partners, right, like an Accenture and so on, why the big partners? Why not more small and medium-sized system integrators?
We have some of both. I think the opportunity with large partners, and when you look at the pricing space, and I would say the number two priority is really delivering an entire pricing lifecycle. And we'll come back to that topic, but you look at the pricing lifecycle, not just price optimization, not just price setting, but the entire lifecycle, which includes delivering a price, the analytics, et cetera. It touches a lot of things in an organization, and it has a significant impact on an organization. And the big SIs have the access, have the resources to support that in a way that the smaller regional ones don't necessarily do. But we do have both. We have a lot of regional partners who are very focused in certain areas, like maybe industry specific or functional. Like we have several pricing consulting firms who just provide the pricing part. But in our customer base is primarily made up of enterprise customers. In that context, it is helpful and important to have choices to give the customers. But oftentimes the large SIs have the resources to, integrate the ERPs, to integrate the CRMs, et cetera, to drive change management.
No. Got it. Then let's also talk a little bit about CPQ, because last year you acquired a CPQ vendor, InMindCloud, right? So you've integrated it now into the solution. Tell me more, what from your point of view is the most exciting part about this acquisition?
It's really funny. I've obviously spent a lot of time in CPQ. You and I have talked about CPQ many times. When I first saw in my cloud on paper as like a quick profile, I dismissed it. It's like, it's never been any reports. You don't see it online. You never hear about it. Never saw them in the market. And then, one of my board members pushed me a little bit. So just look at it. And I did. And I was amazed. I would say it's very much in shock at what it could do, the scope and the depth of its capabilities for a company that most people didn't ever heard of. And so I think, it was in a pleasant way. It was a pleasant surprise to me that they were able to build a CPQ that is very feature rich, and can go deep in terms of a capability. Now, the CEO and founder, Christian, who's part of the team now, he was very focused, and so he could do a lot, and you can do it very well. But he was very focused on very industry focused, and that was what allowed him to do that in a way that he could solve the problem end to end without having to be too spread out and too kind of peanut butter spread in resources. But I really look at it. It is a great example of what I would describe a next gen CPQ. It is deeply embedded and capable to interact with SAP. And at Zilliant, we define our two most important ICPs as distributors and manufacturers. And the large percentage of those, overwhelming percentage of them, are SAP customers. So having the ability to integrate with SAP ERPs and going back to like the implementation time is really important to us. In Cloud had out of the box integrations to SAP ERPs, including variant configurators. Some of the things that you and I both know are the hardest things to integrate with were out of the box. And when I say out of the box, I didn't believe it. I heard it, I read it, I saw a demo. I still didn't believe it until I talked to customers who used it, and I realized it does work, and it works very well. They were, the SAP experience and SAP depth that the team had, and they built into their product. And it doesn't only work with SAP. I mean, they have integrations to Microsoft and to Salesforce and SAP from a CRM perspective, and their APIs we can integrate to any ERP. But the SAP integrations were out of the box and were differentiators. Mm-hmm. And when you look at this space, we now have leading pricing capability, and we now have what people will quickly find out, a leading CPQ. There's a lot of people who just assume this is a very lightweight CPQ because they've never heard of them. They'll realize, and I think you'll start to see analyst reports as well, is like it can do a lot more than people think. And you see a lot of pricing vendors who have lightweight CPQs, or you'd see a lot of CPQ vendors who can do lightweight pricing. Being able to deliver the entire life cycle of the pricing capability without having to sacrifice the ability to do engineered order and flex configuration is very unique, and it's important to our customers because they're looking for that solution. And in the past, they'd have to look across multiple vendors, multiple different CPQs potentially even, and we're going to provide them a one end-to-end platform that can deliver that capability.
Got it. Let me ask one question on this one. So because the capabilities are going in the same direction as what Vendavo did when they acquired the CPQ vendor, what Pros did, right? So how is yours different? How is your value proposal different to your customers compared to these two guys I just mentioned? They're more, but.
Well, I mean, look, we can assess everybody's CPQ differently. I think Pros acquired, I think it was Chameleon 10 years ago, give or take, and it's a good CPQ. I think one of the most important things for us is focus. We're not trying to go after everybody. We're not trying to be a CPQ for everybody or a pricing solution for everybody. We're very focused. There's always going to be Pros' dominance in the travel and ticketing and that space. And we're okay with that. We're not going after that. We're really focused. And we're going to make sure that we have one solution that is industry specific and focused and solves the problems, and it can be direct in that way. And I think that focus is going to be important, and our customers need it.
Tell me a little bit more about that focus, right? So what industries exactly do you have in mind? So Cloud was obviously focused on mid-sized manufacturing companies. Yeah. Zilliant before was more advanced pricing strategies, very sophisticated pricing strategies, right? So how does it work together going forward from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, the two primary industries of focus are manufacturing and distribution companies. And within those space, obviously we have the CPQ, we have pricing. They're both really important capabilities, period, right? So manufacturing, obviously you have the engineer to order, which is really important for CPQ, but every manufacturer also has complex pricing, not just for pricing for the engineer to order, but spare parts, aftermarket parts, capabilities, et cetera. And in the past, they would piece multiple solutions together because they can't do both. So those are the two industries. And obviously within those industries, you can kind of carve out more, but I would say that we are very focused on those two industries from market perspective.
Got it. And then another thing that when I talk to some of the global system integrators like the Deloitte, Accentures, and so on, right? So what I heard from them over the last 12 months was also that they were more focused on the pricing projects because there were more of them. They seem to be easier for them, right? So, and CPQ, while still interesting, there were less projects and seemed to be less money. What's your take on this whole thing?
I think that's part of the problem is that they think of them as different. And
Yeah.
Zilliant has done a great job with really advanced optimization, which is important, but without actually being able to operationalize that and take those insights into actions for our customers, it doesn't do much, right? And so customers who got these optimizations, they may look great on paper, but if they don't actually create the life cycle, and that life cycle is the differentiator. And so I don't think of it as pricing versus CPQ. We're talking about impacting a business, and our customers are looking for margin improvements, margin management, revenue quality, and also growth. In order to deliver that, it's not a pricing or a CPQ, it's entire life cycle. And we know pricing, in our opinion, is more important than anything else. Obviously the CPQ includes the word pricing in it, but what's been fascinating to me, and part of why I came to Zilliant is that pricing was almost always like an afterthought. When you think about architecture slides, there's a box for pricing, but most of the focus is elsewhere. You think about ERPs, same thing. And I think there's at least 5 customers in the last year where when I met with their executive suite, they had a slide, almost exact same slide. They had this, customer experience transformations, ERP transformation, or both. And in between, they had a paperclip, and that was pricing. One of our customers that is currently implementing Zilliant, their quote we had, and we don't give their name because the information was, well, they spent hundreds of $1,000,000 on product, and then afterwards they realized, oh, what about price? They don't do anything in price. It's an afterthought, and I think it's an afterthought because some people assume that it's handled by a CRM or by one of the CPQ vendors out there, or it's handled by the ERP. Reality is they do a little bit on both, but they don't do enough. And so for us, we think that that's been the problem. And we need that entire life cycle. So I think it's both, not one or the other. Now, when it comes to the SI specifically, I haven't heard that, that comment. I'm not surprised to hear that comment. We have a lot of projects with SIs, as I mentioned, like we're just kind of kicking that off, and we're making great progress. And we're seeing, they're really interested in the life cycle as well. I think the problem statement that I was saying that we're working on and we're focused on is we're not a pricing solution or a CPQ solution. We're a solution that helps the customers manage their entire life cycle. And CPQ is a delivery mechanism. And one of the things I didn't mention is whether that it becomes a quote or a proposal from a sales rep or directly through commerce. I mean, in MindCloud, the acquisition, they have out-of-the-box use cases where they can spin up a commerce for aftermarket parts, spare parts, et cetera. So understand that delivery of price is not through one channel anymore. It has to be multiple channel, and we need to understand that life cycle and support it.
And let's follow up on that a little bit with the price life cycle that you mentioned, right? So because you also saw that your former friends from Salesforce, right? So now have the revenue life cycle management, and you still have the CPQ, and you could discuss if that's still the right term. Then you had the middle office term, you had the quote to cash term. Now you mentioned the price life cycle. How is that different? So what do you exactly mean when you talk about the price life cycle on a high level?
I mean, look, everything. I believe pricing is the most important topic. Period. It's one of the 4 Ps in business school that people forget about, right? It's not instead of. It's just a gap. Everybody has a life cycle, but when you think about pricing, everything has a price. Everything has a cost. You can think of it that way as well. And the pricing touches everybody organizationally within our customer base. Every function has a state stake in the ground in pricing, whether it be the teams that are building the products that they manufacture, whether it be the sales teams, whether it be the marketing teams, finance teams, they all care about the price and for different reasons. And so that's for our perspective. It's not a finance solution or a sales solution or a marketing solution. That's part of where it needs to be much broader than that. With regards to others in the market, I'll go back to focus. Everybody has different solutions and different ways to solve for it. What we're committing to is being very focused and very deep in where we focus.
Excellent. So then let's also talk about the tools that you may use to for that focus, right? That's like artificial intelligence. So that was a hot topic now for quite some time. So there were some discussions also that it was a hype. I didn't see necessarily that many customers who were excited about it. Everyone wants to talk about it, wants to listen to it, but does not necessarily want to buy functionalities. I saw from a lot of vendors as well as system integrators that they could sell web shops and webinars to talk about it. What's your take on this whole thing? Where do you see this going?
I mean, it's cool, it's fun. It's there's always great examples of like people doing experiments. But the question is how does it actually have an impact? And how do you take it something that is cool and fun and make it impactful and pragmatic? And I do believe there's an opportunity there. We talked about that at our recent customer event in Austin, our Mindshare. We'll talk about it again in our Mindshare here coming up in Amsterdam. We share with our customers, 3 areas. I mean, our Gen AI analytics, where we can bring the data that we have rich data, our customers' data that we use today, how we can use that to take the data and apply it across their business, whether it be in the sales process or in their planning process or their analytics and the financial process. How do we take and help them get to insights, and most importantly, how does that insight turn into actions? Otherwise, the AI is not really very useful. It doesn't have a positive impact. It's cool. You see people rebranding their company with .ai or calling themselves AI, and just hoping that gives them enough valuation to justify something. But ultimately, what really matters is faster time to insights, faster time to actions. And that's what we're focused on. How can we bring AI to make it actionable for our customers? And so we talked about the Gen AI in our analytics tool that we're launching. We'll be launching the first version of that later this year. We announced it last quarter. We brought AI optimization within the pricing and quoting experience. And then lastly, a self-service assistant for the AI within our commerce use case. As I mentioned, within MindCloud, they had already built commerce use cases. Again, very focused within the industries that we focus on, spare parts, aftermarket parts, change orders. How do we bring Gen AI capabilities direct to the customers? Ultimately, right product, right price, right time, but understanding that can't always be through a sales rep. And so again, bringing the AI ideas, we should continue to do that. We can talk about that. We can theorize about that. Our focus is how do we make it pragmatic, practical for our customers, and tie it to value, because that's what matters.
Got it. Now, you mentioned at the beginning that you had a bunch of partners now also to help you grow the company further, right? So were there any other partner announcements that you think are worth mentioning here that you're working with, that you rely on for this growth?
Earlier this year, we announced a strategic partnership with Accenture. We're building a center of excellence in Bangalore, India, and that's kicked off. We have about 35, 40 resources already in that center of excellence, and that will scale and grow, continue to grow over the year. The first project ever implemented by a third party was implemented by Accenture last year. It was kind of like, let's call that our testing ground, if you will. What are the things that we need to learn as a company and as a product? And so, they were a great partner, and that they were willing to go through that with us. Since then, we've of course built partnership agreements with the Cognizant and PwC, Argonaut as well, some other regional SIs, and SoftServe. And SoftServe is an important one. SoftServe is not very well known in this space, but SoftServe has been a Zilliant partner for 20 years. They're a Zilliant partner. They have been a primary source of outsourcers in the Ukraine, and they've done just a tremendous job of managing their business and our business as part of that. By given all of what's happening in the Ukraine, it's been a tremendously inspiring to see their resilience as a company and as a country. But SoftServe has kind of strategically decided that they're going to start becoming an SI. So as an outsourcer, we've been using them for a while. We will continue to use them, but they're pivoting at least expanding their capabilities to become an SI where they won't just be contracting through us, but actually taking on projects directly. And there's a huge benefit because they have such a long history with Zilliant and success with Zilliant, given that we've been using them for 20 years, that they're ramped day one.
Yeah.
So that's an exciting one.
Excellent. Concerning any industry events that Zilliant will be at, you already mentioned Mindshare. That's your own event, right? So that happens in North America and in Europe. Are there any other events, industry events, where interested customers can see you or meet the team, learn more about the product?
Well, we will definitely be at Dreamforce this year. Again, Mindshare was in Mindshare in America. We just passed that. Mindshare this year in Europe is in Amsterdam in November. So those are the two big events that we're going to. And certainly we will look for other opportunities between across the SAP ecosystem. So we were at Sapphire. So we'll certainly look for regional events as well. But those are the big ones.
And then my very last question: when you look at the three most interesting topics for you personally until the end of the year with Zilliant, right? So what is that?
I think number one, it's expanding our mindset in terms of the services, right? We are going through that transformation, and that is top priority because ultimately customer experience is my number one priority. And that transition is hard, and it's really important for us to do that, but it's also really important for us to do that and minimize any negative experience, and more importantly, make it a positive experience. And we've had great results, as I mentioned. With Accenture, had some great results where we have a really large, complex implementation. I think next time we would pick an easier one for the first one, but we didn't pick an easy one for sure. So I think the customer is number one priority. I think second is our innovations. I mean, you've heard a lot of people say, well, for the first year at Zilliant, what are you doing? Because we haven't heard much. And the first year was really foundational, but hiring the right leadership team, setting up the foundation, defining our strategy, getting alignment. What we're seeing this year, and as I mentioned, we Mindshare, we announced a few things. We'll be launching those this year. So the second half of the year, we'll start to see us launch those capabilities that we talked about at Mindshare. And for me, it's going to be exciting because the customer feedback, we had our first customer advisory board meeting last month in Chicago. Customers who were in that, as well as customers who couldn't make that, the feedback has been great. So, the most common thing I hear is how fast can we get this? And that's really exciting. So, Kylie and Adi and the team of product and engineering resources have been working really fast to build these capabilities and get these capabilities out. But I think that would be my number two.
Excellent. And then I stop here. I think we already talked long enough. Pascal, thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today.
I appreciate it, Frank. Anytime.